Speaker, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 24, printed in Part B of House Report number 118-559, offered by Mr. Issa of California.
Pursuant to House Resolution 1316, the gentleman from California, Mr. Issa, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from California.
Mr. Speaker, my amendment simply recognizes that over the last half century, things have changed. When I was a young private, Richard Nixon opened up the gate to China. A matter of less than a decade later, Jimmy Carter added them to the Science and Technology Agreement, recognizing that this emerging country needed our help and that as we spread them and pushed them away from the Soviet Union, that this was one more way to work together. I commend what those men, those presidents did during their decades. But in the 6 decades since that time, things have changed. The fact is, China isn't just a competitor. They are, in fact, the world's greatest thief of technology, and cooperation simply leads to greater espionage and theft. So for that reason, it is time to end our agreement that gives them one-way access to our technology. Simply, we can no longer support the stealing of technology. Or in other words, in the words of Vladimir Lenin, the capitalists will sell us the rope with which we will hang them. That has not changed. Mr. Speaker, I urge that and reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from California reserves. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from California rise?
Mr. Chairman, I claim the time in opposition.
Gentlewoman claims time in opposition. The gentlewoman from California is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I rise in opposition to this amendment. This Science and Technology Agreement, or STA, with the PRC was extended for 6 months in March, and it does not commit us to a permanent agreement. The extension will allow the administration time to amend and strengthen terms of the STA. Without the STA, the United States would lose valuable insight into China's technical advances. Additionally, many scientific STA outcomes have been deeply beneficial to the United States and the rest of the world. This includes determining the importance of folic acid supplementation in preventing birth deaths and decreasing China's air pollution, which blows across the Pacific, contributing to our West Coast air pollution. Opponents of this agreement cite concerns that the PRC would exploit civilian research partnerships for military purposes. However, all legitimate concerns about information sharing can be addressed through modifications to the STA rather than eliminating it entirely. This is being actively negotiated now, and we need to give negotiators a chance to come to a stronger agreement. I urge my colleagues to oppose this amendment, and I reserve the balance of my time.
California reserves. Gentleman from California is recognized.
You know, my friend, the gentlelady from California, knows that the acid rain that falls on California and throughout the United States comes from the knowing and willful burning of coal with no scrubbers in China. They don't need technology agreements to fix that. The technology exists. They need a will to do it. If we're going to talk about what we would get in the way of air quality, the answer is we're not getting air quality because they simply won't make those expenses. And so that's sadly a hollow reason to continue it. Additionally, there are sub-agreements within the STA. Those do not go away. And so some of the things that were cited, if they're appropriate, would continue. With that, I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentlewoman from California is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I ask for a no vote, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from California is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, for all of those of us who serve on the Science Committee, there is no greater investment that we have made around the world than the one we made in CERN, the one in that super collider, the one that gave us the PET scan, that gave us a lot of other technology, that made us understand after the atomic age began what a proton was, how an electron worked. And these particle beams have been huge. It has been something in which we have contributed billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars a year, asking only that our sciences be able to study with the others. I was just in CERN. The scientists there, who are as one world as any scientists you would find, both Americans and Europeans and others, they were in shock because many of their colleagues had just returned from China, where they found that the entire design for the future particle collider, which is going to be built in North Dakota, had been stolen in its entirety. Every part of that sensitive information had been taken to China. And when they went there, with the most galling thing they could see was the Chinese bragging about having it and that they were going to get it built first and that people would have to come to them years before it would be available in the United States. We have been in a science cooperation that included the Chinese at every step. It is time to recognize that we have gotten little from them except lies about the origin of COVID. We have, in fact, been lied to by them, and theft is systematic. We cannot and should no longer enter into those kind of agreements, and for that reason, I urge passage of this simple but important amendment, and I yield back.